Hello and welcome to Stir with Love, presented by Level Food Network. I'm Jan and
Nicole.
Nice to have you here today. If you're just tuning in, we have been talking about how to host Thanksgiving like a pro. We've talked a little bit about the planning for Thanksgiving. We've talked about picking out a turkey, buying a turkey, and also how all the different ways that you could prepare your turkey. And I think we've covered quite a bit. But now it's on to those amazing sides, right? We need to talk about all the side dishes and not just what they are. You have lots of options for that, but how to prep them ahead of time to save you some stress and some time on Thanksgiving Day. And then how to keep all your guests happy that day and keep your food safe, right? When I say keep your food safe, what I mean is really keep your Bless you, Nicole.
Thank
When
you.
I say keep your food safe, what I really mean is how to keep your guests safe, to make sure that you're not going to make them sick by handling your food improperly. So, just a quick recap, Nicole is culinary trained, and she's worked in the food industry for many years in commercial kitchens and has a lot of knowledge to talk about when it comes to, keeping your food safe. And I am food safety certified. So, we really take this seriously, and we want to teach you how to do things the right way. So not only do you have wonderful flavors to give everybody an amazing food, but that you do it in a way that's responsible as well. So I think that's the best way to put that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to. I don't know if you can see my screen. You can see my screen here. All right, and hopefully you saw me during this video and not just my screen of my mashed potatoes. So when we introduced ourselves, if we missed that, here I'm going to just do this for a second so we can say hello. If for some reason that didn't come out right, bear with us. This is our first beginning podcast, and hopefully you saw Nicole and I along with those lovely mashed potatoes. All right, I'm going to go back and I'm going to bring those back up because that is one of those dishes that we all want to have as our side dish at Thanksgiving. Everybody's like, where's the mashed potatoes and the gravy? That's comfort food at its best. But you don't have to have mashed potatoes, right? We talked about that, Nicole.
That's all right.
You had an option that might be good as well. What was that?
Scallop potatoes, anything that you can do ahead of time.
Scallop potatoes. That's a great idea. People love that too, and it's always one of those dishes that it feels homey and comforting. Do you put cheese in them? Most people put cheese.
I do Parmesan. That's about the only cheese that I usually do, but
Yeah,
to each his own.
yeah. Because
Lots of different variations.
it just I picture like those nice gooey, like you're dipping in with your spoon and pulling out those gooey potatoes and putting them on the plate, and they're just oozing with like cheese, and I don't know. To me, that just sounds so delicious, and it might be an option for Thanksgiving this year. But if you're going to do mashed potatoes, all right, Nicole and I have different feelings on this one, but I'm going to tell you that I do it all the time. I make my mashed potatoes ahead of time, and I either do them in a casserole, like making something like Duchess style potato casserole, where you're mixing it in with cheese and egg and everything. And I put that in a pan and put that right into my refrigerator. Or you can even make mashed potatoes ahead of time and freeze them. Now, I know it sounds weird, but you can. You cook them, you chill them, and you get them in the freezer, and then you reheat them. As soon as you reheat them, you do have to use them, though. You can't reheat them and then reheat them again. But it can be done, and it can be done safely. Potatoes are one of those weird foods. You got to be careful with them, but I've proven it. It can be done. We do it all the time. So we have mashed potatoes even on a weeknight because we love them. And Nicole's like, no, no, she disagrees.
I like my potatoes freshly whipped.
Freshly whipped. That's the way she wants them. Yes, you can tell she's spoiled. You're spoiled working in those kitchens.
Yeah.
Always
And
having
then if there's
lunches.
any leftovers, we're not reheating them. We're making potato latkes or something else with them, gnocchi or something.
Yep, you won't reheat them. But
Right.
yes, so we disagree on that, but that's okay. That's the thing about cooking, right? So there's not, and we talked about this with the turkey, right? There's so many ways to do something. Not any one way is necessarily the right way as long as you're doing it safely, right?
Right.
So we even do our turkey, the way we get our herbs and butter and everything on our turkey, we do it differently. The way we brine and inject our turkeys, we do differently. It's just a matter of preference. Now, Nicole will tell you that her way is the right way, right? Because she's technically trained. But
So this is just my way.
it's technique, and technique comes down to your preference too sometimes. Right, agreed. All right, so what about stuffing? Let's talk about stuffing. In the last episode, we showed a turkey that had been stuffed, and then we had like a persimmon on the front of it. And for years, I made my stuffing inside the turkey. That's how I was taught. But today, we know a little bit better about that. And I became food safety certified and learned even more about that. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's not that you can't stuff the turkey or the bird with the stuffing inside the cavity. It's that if you do, you have to do it very loosely so air can circulate through and around it. And the reason for that, Nicole's nodding her head, is uneven cooking temperatures for your bird. That bird, that turkey has got to be served at a cooking temperature that is, or internal temperature, I should say, that is 165 or greater in order to not make someone sick. You run the risk of food poisoning. And even though you can put the temperature probe in at different areas of the bird, it's got to all be 165 or higher. Right,
And the
Nicole?
stuffing too, right? Not just the bird, just the stuffing has to be up to temperature 165.
That's right. So everything's got to be at 165 or higher. The reason for that is there is a food safety range in temperature where bacteria grows and multiplies very rapidly. And when you're in that danger zone is between 140 and 165. And so you have to be very careful about getting your food to those proper temperatures. Cold foods need to be kept colder than 140, and hot foods need to be hot over 165. So that's the way to think about
for turkey. Yeah, for turkey and chicken, poultry, 165.
Correct, 165. Yes, yes. And when you're reheating foods, any foods, when you're reheating, they should be over that. But you're right, Nicole. But that's the temperature danger zone. So making your stuffing. So, now I don't stuff my bird. I just find it's better not to. I make my stuffing on the side and put them in these pans. Nicole, how about you?
Same. I don't like stuffing my bird. Me and my family prefer the top of the stuffing to have like a little bit of a crisp on it. So we enjoy our stuffing in pans and then right in the oven.
Yeah. And, the other thing is that I do put something inside the cavity of the bird. And Nicole, I think you do too. I put in some celery and carrots, onions, and some herbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why is the reason that we do that?
You're flavoring the bird from the inside.
Yeah. And also, I think it helps bring a little moisture, right? Because all those vegetables start to cook down a little bit, and that it's creating like steam inside the bird to kind of get that especially the areas near the bone. I think it helps it to cook a little bit better. That's just my thought. I could be wrong on it.
No, you're right. Sure.
So carrots, celery, onions. What else do you put in?
Rosemary, thyme.
Yeah. Rosemary,
You throw
thyme.
some garlic in there. You could go sweet. You could throw some apple or half an orange. Or you could just stick to savory.
Yeah, I love that. Now, stuffing. Let's talk about stuffing again for a minute because I make my stuffing different than you do too. I put cranberries in my stuffing and apple, right? I do onion, I do butter, I do chicken stock, and I do sausage. That what you're looking at right there is my stuffing. That's got the sausage already cooked, right, and cooled before you mix it together. I just recently read on the USDA's website something about not mixing the hot with the cold when you're mixing your stuffing if you're making it ahead of time. They actually suggest, and I thought that this was interesting because I'd not heard this before, that you don't mix it all together. If you're going to prep it ahead of time, that you prep your sausage and keep that aside, prep your apples, keep that aside, prep your bread, keep it aside, and then just mix it before you get ready to cook it, which would be fine too. I mean, it makes no difference. It's not really saving you much to put it all in the pan ahead of time, right? You could just dump it in that pan. So I wouldn't disagree with the USDA, but I in the past have made my stuffing ahead of time. I certainly don't mix warm with cool, but I have mixed it together and put it in the fridge. But now they say that's not even really safe to do. So interesting.
Yeah, I make my stuffing ahead of time.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that, which way is the right way. But when it comes to food safety, I'm going to always err on the side of caution, and I'm going to do it the way USDA says to do it. Okay, let's talk about veggies for a minute. So making veggies ahead of time. You make veggies ahead of time?
Sometimes
Yep.
butternut squash I'll do ahead of time. Certain
Yep,
things.
butternut squash. That's a good one. You could even now, I know you don't like freezing a lot of your food, but you could even make that butternut squash, mix it up, and then you could freeze it, and then you could reheat it. Because if you go to the frozen food section of a grocery store, look and see what they freeze. And if they can freeze it, you can freeze it. I learned that trick recently, right? So you can. Not that you need to, but you like to make it, put it in your fridge, make it ahead of time. Green beans is one of those ones that I do ahead of time, and here's why. Because I can cook them till they're al dente, and then mix them, put in there any of the flavoring I want, and then I could just quickly heat them up in the microwave. And it cooks just that little extra time, and to me, that's an easy one. That's a no-brainer.
But you're not freezing them though, right? You're just cooking them ahead of time.
Correct.
Put 'em in
Those
the
I'm not
fridge.
freezing. No,
Right. Okay.
those I'm just cooking ahead of time. But I'm talking about something mushy like the butternut squash that you puree. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Something
you could
that's gonna
freeze.
hold its texture. Right.
Correct. Now, my green beans, this is my green beans that I do with salt pork. I also
Mhm.
do one with bacon. Oh, she loves those. Did you see that? This was a dish that was passed down from my dad. Um, and so it's got salt pork, and it has oil and vinegar and salt and pepper and garlic powder in it, black pepper. This is just a easy, wonderful, amazing dish that you can make ahead of time. And if you don't like salt pork, you could substitute bacon. I've done that many times. And for those of you who don't eat meat, you can make the green beans and season them so many different ways. Nicole made me the best green beans. We talked about this before one time, and I went to her house. I think it was when you had first fairly new apartment, and I went over to your apartment for a meal. And I was like, these are the best green beans I've ever had. They were so good. I couldn't stop eating them. What's your secret, Nicole? You must have some technical secret. Would you tell me?
Lots of butter and garlic.
So no matter how you like your green beans, nobody's going to complain with lots of butter, especially on Thanksgiving, right? Make them ahead of time. All right. I've even made my gravy ahead of time. So here's the thing. I know I see you all in the supermarket, you buying that gravy in a jar, right? I see you do it. And I'm like, okay, if you can buy it in a jar, there's no reason why you can't make this ahead of time, right? It's better. It's more flavorful than buying the one in the jar. And you know what? I know what goes in this. Look on the ingredients of the one you buy in the jar. Do you know what those ingredients are? You don't. So what I do is I will use my own chicken stock. I keep chicken stock frozen every time I cook any kind of chicken for my dog in the Instapot, whatever. I get the stock left over from it, and then I freeze it. So I can then take my chicken stock that I have made, or you can buy chicken bone broth at the store, which is really flavorful, right? And then you can make this gravy ahead of time. If you've bought a turkey that has the giblets and the neck and all those pieces and parts in it, boil those down and throw some aromatics in with it, some celery, some carrots, make a stock, and then mix up this gravy ahead of time. On the day of Thanksgiving, now when you take your turkey out of that pan, you don't have to use all the pan drippings, or you could add the pan drippings to your already prepared gravy, and now you have even more flavor. So if you're going to store it in a mason jar. Don't store it more than 2 days ahead of time. You want to kind of do this within the 3-day time period, because that's when your food is going to stay the freshest and safest. Make sure you don't pour hot liquids. Let this cool down for 2 hours before you pour it in the jar. And why do I say 2 hours? I mean no more than 2 hours, because your food shouldn't sit out for more than 2 hours. All right, so pour it safely in the mason jars, cover them, get them in the fridge. But here's an easy way to meal prep for Thanksgiving. Butters, compound butters, right? Flavored butters for the table. Honey butter, that's a great idea. People love honey butter on their rolls. I even did a basil butter one time, and people liked that one. It just had a little bit of an herby, fresh flavor. And you'll have to excuse my messes. This was before I actually wiped the jars out. I didn't put them on the table like that. Those were my molds. Anyway, what about any fillings that you have to do for an appetizer? So I make these little asparagus roll-ups, and I soften the cream cheese, put the bacon bits in. I think I have a picture of it here. Yeah. And I make that all ahead of time. So the day of, when I'm going to make my little asparagus roll-ups, which has a piece of bread and this cream cheese mixture and asparagus inside it, and then it gets toasted in the oven. Oh, they're so good. Anyway, before I make those, I have my spread already done. So why would I wait till the day of Thanksgiving and try to mix that up? Then you just have mayhem going on.
Mm-hmm.
Nicole, you agree? What kind of things do you make ahead of time, Nicole?
A lot of my appetizers, because as people come in, people come in at different times. You want to have them, snacking or grazing on something, so that way you can finish cooking and getting prepared and doing whatever you're doing. So, having anything prepared like stuffed celery. I know you do yours with cream cheese and olives. I do mine with blue cheese. So we do stuffed gorgonzola and celery. Anything, if you're going to have cheese and crackers or any other type of dip, or so I mean, and anything that you can prep ahead of time that's going to save you time is going to help, so that way you don't feel like you've been cooking for 15 hours straight.
Correct. And even if you can't prep it all, prepping some of it is still better than prepping none of it. So I was thinking about, and I thought I had a picture of it, but I must not have it in here. I was looking, because a lot of times I will take and do all my celery and carrots like 3 days before, because I know I need a ton of it. I need it for my stuffing. I know that I need it for my stock. I know that I need it for the inside of the bird. Why wouldn't I just get that all done? Plus, how many people go to the grocery store and buy that big long thing of celery, right? And then it takes up a lot of room in your vegetable drawer. But once you prep it and cut it, you can put it into like manageable packages. And then if you're, I try to teach, I don't throw the tops away, because that's really good inside the bird or inside the stock, but just put them in a separate bag. And then that way you can access them, So agreed. Anything, and I like the point that you just brought up, right? Having something for people to graze on as they arrive. And even if they're arriving at all different times and things are a little chaotic, having something for everybody to kind of go and grab and walk around with is a whole nother part of this, right? Making your guests feel comfortable.
Right.
So I was just thinking about that too. And I like to have a cocktail ready for everybody, right? So, have something. It doesn't have to be alcoholic. It could be a mocktail. It could be a glass of cider, whatever, whatever your family is into and your friends. but I love this little idea. Try to make it look pretty, right? So I'll do, champagne glasses. This is not my picture. I don't want to take credit for it, but I've done similar things to this where you take and you just drop a raspberry in and, like a little, piece of that happens to be thyme, right? Fresh thyme from my garden, right? That would be easy for me to do. But what do you have that could just elevate your meal just a little bit and make everybody happy? I don't care if you give everybody a plastic solo cup, but have something available. So, depending on what kind of event you're having.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what I'm going to tell you not to do. Do not try to cater to everybody's whim of what they would like to drink either. I have made that mistake in the past where I've like, well, we have, you can have this or you can have this or you can have this. It makes it crazy. Offer the signature dish, have water set up, have, whatever you're going to have. If it's going to be like water or cider, that's fine, but only offer one thing other than that because it gets nuts. All right. Talking about making things ahead of time. I want these cookies so bad. I really think today I'm going to get off this podcast and I'm going to go try and make these cookies. So, apricot filling, it just looks beautiful. What'd you call these cookies?
Shortbread window cookies.
Window cookies. Okay. Beautiful cookies. But you make your desserts when?
I make my desserts usually at least 2 days before, for the most part. If I don't have everything put together for it, I have, because I'm making the filling ahead of time. I'm making, the dough for the cookies or whatever I'm preparing.
And it kind of goes back to making lists because here's what happens often. We get this great idea that we're going to make something for Thanksgiving and we start to cook it and we start pulling out ingredients and we're like, oh, I don't have X, Y, or Z. I don't have baking soda. Or how is it that I've run out of, some ingredient that you needed. So making lists and being organized is a whole other part of this. And we talked about that in the beginning about your guest list. And we talked about all those things, but keeping a running food list of what you need at the store that you can access on your phone. Like we use Alexa. I just tell her what I'm missing when I'm missing it, right? And I add it on my list, and that way, when I'm in the store, I can just glance down at my phone and know what I need, what I'm missing. So, just being organized.
Creating a prep list, that's what helps me. I know exactly, 2 days before what I need to get done, one day before I need to get done, and then the day of. I almost write it down like a timesheet. What time I to go in, what time I need to start certain stuff, and that's going to help you stay on track and keep your brain focused on what you need to do.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Nicole, because even that day, like, a lot of us think we have it under control, but without actually writing it down and thinking about it at this time, my turkey has to go in. At this time, my turkey needs to be resting because how long should you rest a turkey? I mean, that needs a good hour, right? And there's some kind of a mathematical equation to it by the number of pounds and all of that, but you need at least an hour. And for pretty much any size turkey, and the bigger turkey, the longer you'll need. And the reason why we rest, just can you explain that to people? Why do we rest meat?
Locks in all the juices, so that way when you slice the turkey, it doesn't come running out.
Yeah. And so what happens is when you're cooking that turkey, you're stressing the meat out, right? And then what it needs to do, the reason we call it resting is that once that temperature starts to change, right? And it's not at that 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're putting it out on the counter, the meat just actually sits there, and all of the juices go in between those fibers of the meat. And this doesn't matter whether it's turkey or beef. That juice will go into those fibers and it'll make it more tender, won't it? And it's less dry. If you've ever had somebody's turkey and it was dry, it's not always because it's overcooked. It might have been that they cut it open and all the juice ran out of that turkey. Or if it was tough. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go and just talk about a couple of other things now. We're going to go ahead and be wrapping this up. So I'm going to bring back my slides. In the earlier presentation, we talked about the kids' table, and I just want to say this, like, keep your kids' table really simple, right? When you go to setting your table that day, put things on the table that you don't care that the kids break or wreck or crunch up with their hands. And here's like a wonderful idea. Why not just go get some leaves out of, it's fall, right? So go get some leaves from the yard, and some different plants and press them and let the kids play with them at the table. To me, it makes for a cute little table and simple. And Nikki, you had a good idea too, the gourds, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were like,
Yeah, let them color them, let them paint them, do whatever they want. Just it's keeping the kids entertained so that way you can sit down and enjoy the day too.
That's right. Um, and the reason we don't put kids at the adult table is especially if the table looks like this. We love the kids, do you know what I mean? But it's just not an environment for them. There's just too many dangers here that they could tip over a candle or spill somebody's tall stems glass. It's just too many opportunities for them to get into a place where they're making your Thanksgiving festivities maybe less enjoyable. So making sure that you have that covered is important so that you can sit down and enjoy beautiful meal. And we made a point earlier, and I don't know if I said it earlier or if it was during just our run through, but making sure that you put the kids' table close enough to their parents, because allowing the parent to be able to access those children quickly if something goes wrong, if a child falls off a chair or spills a drink or whatever, or just goes to do something that they shouldn't be doing to their brother or sister. It's just having the parent access that to that table instead of putting them in the back near grandma or near someone who isn't going to be as alert as to what's going on with their kids. So just another thought about that. Now I want to talk about your meal has been placed on the table, and this is important because it's a food safety thing. So you've got all the food out, everybody's gotten their plates. Within 2 hours of that food being out of their environment in the oven or the refrigerator, that food needs to be packed up and back into the fridge. Food should not sit out more than 2 hours. In the olden days, we would all go to mom or grandma's house, and that food would sit out for hours and hours and hours and hours, and we would eat it. We'd all have stomach ache. And what we all had was food poisoning. So no, fault to grandma, mom. They didn't have the information, but here's the reality of this. At the 2 hour mark, if you as the hostess now say to everyone, hey, I'm going to be packing up and putting some of the food away. Now's a good time for everybody to come and get their plates for whatever they want to take home. And I buy those takeout containers, those plastic ones that you get, like when you get takeout, like, food now from any place. Some of them have the little dividers in them, some of them don't. I buy those and just keep those on hand. It makes me a better hostess, and it allows my guests to be able to take food, pack it up, put it into those containers, the food that they want, not what I'm giving them, all right, without everybody else touching it. They get to put it into a container. And you can take that one step further. If they're going to be taking multiple containers, buy some brown paper bags with handles on them. You can get them in any craft store for like next to nothing. Sometimes even the dollar store has them. And put out a marker or two. Let them write their names on them, pack their bags, throw them right into the fridge before you even serve dessert. That way you can bring desserts out. Everything's pretty much cleared up. The food that needs to be put away has been put away. Your guests know what they're taking home, and now you're going into the flow of dessert. To me, it just makes it easy, less chaotic, and you put a time on it. But the most important thing is that that food is safe for them to take home and eat, and safe for you for whatever's left, right? So that's a big one for me.
Yep, absolutely.
And most important for your day, right? Just remember that this maybe at one point in time was you. Maybe you did learn from mom and grandma how to do certain things in the kitchen, right? But it's really about family coming together, maybe family and friends, just enjoying each other's company and having a great time. And, this one scene reminds me that Thanksgiving doesn't have to always be traditional and about the turkey. So, Nicole, tell us your secret, because I kind of alluded to it earlier.
Mhm.
This is my traditional daughter who's going to do something a little bit different. What are you doing this year?
Yeah, so besides doing the turkey, we're doing an Italian Thanksgiving. So we're doing lasagna, we're doing parmesan, we're doing chicken piccata, we're doing antipasta salad. So it doesn't always have to be about the turkey. It's just more or less that we're making a bunch of food that we know our family and friends enjoy, and we're all going to come down and share the meal together.
I love that. I think that that is so much fun and such a great way to kind of get together and be together. And it's about flavors, it's about food, but it doesn't always have to be about just one specific type of food. The
Mhm.
other thing that we did talk about, or we intended to talk about, was, when it comes to doing something that, um, getting everybody involved and letting everybody kind of be together in any way, shape, or form would be, if you want to do an informal Thanksgiving, it's fine too. If you want to make everything paper products, you can do that. You can do that and make it look fantastic. Um, if you want to serve out of tinfoil pans, that's fine too. If you want to have it more formal, that works as well. So it's all a matter of your preference.
Mhm.
And from year to year, it can be something different, because we don't want those looks from our brother and sister-in-law, or our sister and brother-in-law, and our auntie or our mother looking down their nose at us, as to what we're doing. But you want to just make it an enjoyable day for everyone.
Right.
And um, making things ahead of time and being prepared is going to allow you to be able to have wonderful leftovers. And by the way, we've written an article on Thanksgiving leftovers. We have lots of recipes on our website about those leftovers. Things from, like, using the leftover stuffing and making breakfast waffles the next day, and just different things that you can do to make those Thanksgiving leftovers be something different. Nicole? What's your favorite? You said one of your favorite things to make was, with the turkey
Oh,
leftovers.
turkey pot pie.
Turkey pot
Yes,
pie.
pie. Yep. Turkey, you can make, rather than doing a shepherd's pie with beef, you can do a turkey shepherd's pie, or
Such a great idea.
it doesn't always have to be just soup. Even though everybody enjoys soup, you just got to find different ways to recreate using those ingredients.
And adding different flavors in with them. I did a cranberry smoothie one year, and it was
Mm.
good. It was a little tart, but I added some honey in there, and it was amazing. So cranberry smoothies. I mean, why not? Cranberries are really good for you.
Right.
So there's all these different ways to think about doing leftovers. So make sure that you come to our website for Love of Food Network, which is loveoffood.net. Check out all of our Thanksgiving recipes, as we have a ton of them. Make sure that you are subscribed to our channel here so that you'll get updates. You're going to want to see when I spatchcock that turkey, how I do it, and we'll show you the final results. And Nikki, I'm going to challenge you to get some of that Italian Thanksgiving pictures or video done, so that everybody can see how your Thanksgiving turned out with your amazing Italian food too. And I think we've covered everything that we had intended to cover today. How about you, Nicole?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, if it's, especially if it's your first or second Thanksgiving and you're not 100% comfortable with making appetizers, with making, the full meal, with making all the desserts, don't be afraid to ask your family and friends to bring something. Have them bring whatever their favorite dish was that they grew up with, that their grandmother or, their family friend always made. Make whatever you can, but then don't be afraid to buy something if you need to, if it calls regarding your budget, or if you're just your know-how, and you're intimidated to do it all. Don't feel like you have to do it all.
It doesn't
definitely.
have to all be done by scratch, and it doesn't all have to be done by you. And
Right.
that is an amazing point. And I love the way that you brought that up, about asking someone to bring what their favorite dish was, or what something that they can't live without for Thanksgiving. What does Thanksgiving mean to them? What's that one food? And then asking them to bring that and fill in so that you are not overtaxing yourself, your budget, just all of it. I just think, and it makes that Thanksgiving be kind of everyone's Thanksgiving and not just yours.
Right.
I once had watched a show about this chef who said everybody was intimidated to come to her house for a dinner party because, they would feel like, oh, she's just going to, everything's going to be so fancy and whatever. And what she would do is she would purposely put her hair in a towel and get to the door and not have everything prepped. She would get to the door, open the door for her guests and be like, I'm so sorry, I'm running behind. Now, she did this. This was a tactic she used. Go to the kitchen. Would you mind chopping up the onions for me? Would you mind putting this together? And so she would do this, right? I'm not suggesting you do this for Thanksgiving, by the way, but I'm saying this was like when she was having a dinner party for friends. And what would happen is all the friends would end up in the kitchen putting things together for her. And she would just take her hair out of the towel. It never really was wet. And then join everybody. They had already formed a bond together, and they already felt like it was a meal that they were all preparing. And I thought that was quite unique. So,
Yeah.
that's what you made me think of when you talked about that.
Well, it's good, but you also have to give yourself ample time to get ready as well, right? So
Yeah,
you don't want everybody to show up and you're still sitting in your sweatpants, and everybody's dressed in their Thanksgiving outfits. You need to make sure to give yourself at least an hour to get ready before everybody comes, and
yeah.
making sure that at that hour point that you're okay and if nothing is going to boil over on the stove or, you know, and then I think the other thing that we didn't touch on is, people who have fur babies, making sure that people don't, you mentioned people don't feed anything from the table because everything that I know I cook with always has lots of garlic and onions.
Yeah.
And so from the visual eye, even though you're not physically feeding them an onion, my turkey or my stuffing could be loaded with it and they don't know that. So
That's a good point.
making sure to keep them busy, and that nobody, you don't want to get them sick as well. So
Keeping the fur babies safe as well. That's right. I think that was a really good point. Well, I hope that you have learned something, enjoyed your time here with Nicole and I hope that you have an amazing Thanksgiving. We're going to be sharing our Thanksgiving information with you, and we'd love to hear from you and see what you cooked. And if you did get anything from this podcast that you're going to use or pass along to someone else, please do share. If you disagree, we're okay with that too. Like we said, there's a lot of different ways to have a Thanksgiving and make it come together fantastic. The only place that I don't ever, that I'll always argue on though is food safety, because that comes directly from sources that are collecting scientific data. So other than that, everything is subjective. We want to thank you again and have an amazing Thanksgiving. And thank you to Nicole as well for all of your technical input.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.